Tax Exam License for Dummies. Part 3. It's all mine. Owning and transferring real estate. In this part, get an overview of liens, other property types, distinguishing traits, creations, and removals. Add additional information about land use regulations to use your toolbox, from making master plans to understanding zoning ordinances to construct regulations. Then you get to check out eminent domain and what government can and can't do. Deeds are an important part of the job of the real estate agent. Uncover what's required to have a valid deed, discover about the various types and understanding and why they are so important. Examine the title closing process and find out what you need before, during, and after you close on the property. A success for you, the buyer and the seller. Understand the several different ways a property can be involuntarily lost, from the forces of nature to the government, and even due to death. As a real estate salesperson in today's market, it is important to know this information. In this chapter 6, discovering different ownership terms, finding out about all types of real estate, understanding the rights that go with owning real estate. Chapter 6, owning it, real estates and interests. Owning real estate is different from owning almost anything else. For one thing, you can't move it anywhere. For another, you can't also do so many things with it. Real estate is literally the foundation on which people live their lives. It exclusively is yours and subject to certain legal limitations. You can pretty much do what you want with it, on it, under it, and over it. When you drive across your neighbor's property to get to your land, it becomes your neighbor's has given you the right to do so. Real estate is a unique commodity, and owning it, it has its own unique laws and practices. This chapter discusses the unique aspects of owning real estate and introduces you to the concept that are specific to real estate ownership and the various rights that come with owning property. I talk about the specific terms that are used to describe real estate ownership and about the concepts called a bundle of rights, which is about the rights you get when you own real estate. I also discuss additional rights that go with owning real estate, specifically air and water rights. Although the concept of this chapter are pretty much universal to all states, I nevertheless point out a few things that are specific to individual states. You need to find out about the concept that applies specifically to your home state. What do you own? Understanding ownership terms. You buy a car, you own a car. You buy a table, you own a table. Most of what's so different about owning a piece of real estate is the terminology that is evolved over time to precisely explain what people are talking about when describing real estate ownership. Remember, although I define the term as they properly use the exam purposes, you also need to be aware in the real world some of the terms are used interchangeably. Looking at land. Land generally is thought of as an unimproved surface of the earth. It's dirt, so to speak, with nothing built on it because of its complicated natures and ownership rights. When people say they own a piece of land, in reality, they own an area under the surface down to the center of the earth and the air above the ground surface until the air, space, or infinity. For details, see everything different ownership's rights section later in this chapter. Although practical and legal experts make using of all the space difficult at best, you don't have to stop dreaming about immense skyscrapers. The fact is, when you own a piece of land, right to build that skyscraper is exactly what you own. Land ownership includes all the natural elements or features on the land like trees and rocks. Even if the rocks are gold, the related term site usually refers to the land that has been approved in some way and is already to be developed. The common usage, however, someone may refer to the site of a new subdivision, but mean the unimproved land where the subdivision is supposed to go. Recognizing real estate. The term real estate means the land and all natural and artificial improvements permanently attached to it. The term real estate refers to the physical thing that is owned as opposing to the rights of owning the land and its improvements. See in the next section. The word improvement means something that is built on and permanently attached to the land. A house is an improvement, and so are detached garages, landscapes, walkways, and driveways. Defining real property. The term real property means land, natural and artificial improvements, and all the rights, benefits, and interests that go with owning a piece of land and its improvements. These rights include all surface, subsurface, and air rights that are automatically included with the ownership of the land. For the scope, see everything different, ownership rights, different in this chapter. Checking out personal property. They're probably wondering why, if in this book about real estate, you will need to learn about personal property. The answer, you need to know about personal property so you can tell the difference between it and real estate. The difference almost always is covered in this test. Personal property, sometimes called personality, is anything that is portable, movable, and not permanently attached to the real estate. Personal property sometimes is defined as anything of value that isn't real estate. Anything ranging from furniture to a car is considered personal property. Personal property that becomes real estate is called a fixture. From a real estate perspective, the principal difference between personal property and a fixture is the personal property goes with the owner when a piece of real estate is sold, and a fixture stays with the property. Say you have lumber delivered to your house to build a deck. At the time of delivery, the lumber is personal property. That goes with you if you sell the house. However, if you build a deck with that lumber and attach the deck to the back of the house, the lumber is now considered a fixture that, of course, stays with the house when you sell it. Ornamental trees and bushes are considered fixtures that remain with the real estate when it's sold. In cases where the seller wishes to take certain plants with her, like grandma's prized rose bushes, she would have to dig them up before listing the property for sale, or specifically in contract, or specified in the contract that they are to be removed. Agricultural crops, however, are considered personal property. A farmer who leases some farmland has the right to his crops even when his lease ends before the end of the growing season. Crops grown on property just before it's sold generally are considered to be personal property of the seller. A small technicality here is although that the farmer is entitled to the crops he's planted, he will not be entitled to the apples on the apple tree after he sells the property. When the question arises about whether a piece of personal property is a fixture, these four so-called legal tests commonly are used to make the determination. Adaptation of an item to the real estate. The fact that occurs when an item of a personal property is customized to fit in the house. A custom bar in a finished playroom is a good example. The existence of agreement. An agreement made in advance between two parties, a landlord and a tenant, for example, can define what is considered personal property and what is considered a fixture. Method of attachment. Sometimes its legal test is called the method of annexation, and the deal with how an item of personal property is attached to a building, a bookcase with a single screw holding up against the wall, for example, will likely be considered personal property. A bookcase that has molding and the baseboards around it attached to the wall will be considered a fixture because it's more firmly and permanently attached. Relationships of the parties. The best example for the test is that a commercial tenant in a real estate building who attaches fixtures to the structure, perhaps jury cases in the jury story. The tenant normally not only is able to take them when they leave out, but is required to remove them. Such fixtures are known as trade fixtures. If a tenant left the fixtures and the landlord wants to claim them, they will be considered permanent fixtures at that point. Estates, even without the capsules. The term estate or estate in land describes the existence and the type of interests or rights that someone has in a piece of land. It essentially means the same thing as the bundle of rights theory. See next section. You need to bear in mind that neither the term estate nor the term interest necessarily means ownership. For example, the right to use property granted by an easement is an interest in land. I talk about easements in chapter 8. And a lease also is an interest in the land that also happens to be an estate in the land, because the designated possession of the land, unlikely an easement, which designates only the right to use the land. I'll talk about leases in chapter 12. In this section that follows, I'll talk about a general concept called the bundle of rights. I'll also describe the different types of estates in land and how they fall into two main categories, freehold and leasehold. As you check out the material, concentrate most of the terminology and on being able to remember the significant characteristics of each type of estate. Pick and choose the bundle rights. The concept that long has been associated with real estate ownership is the bundle of rights, which sometimes is called the bundle of rights theory. By picturing a bundle of sticks or logs, each with representative specific rights associated with real estate ownership, you begin to get an idea of what I'm talking about. One key element is the bundle of rights theory, that is, you can remove one of the rights, one of the sticks, and separate it from the rest of the bundle. One obvious right of ownership of property, for example, is the right to actually possess or occupy it. However, if I own an office building, I can give the right to possession or occupancy to a tenant through a lease. I may still want the building, but I've separated a part of my rights to occupy the building from my bundle of ownership rights. Doing so severely limits my rights to occupy the part of the building that I lease to the tenant, even though I still own the building. The bundle of rights included the rights to use and occupy, mine, farm, and develop the property, the rights to will, give, and restrict others from using the property, and the rights not to do any of these things with the property. Figuring out freehold estates. The essential characteristics of a freehold estate are that it must include ownership of the real estate and that it lasts for an indefinite or indeterminate period of time and can be forever or for the time frame of the person with the interest in real estate. Fee estates and life estates. Fee estates and life estates are the two main type of freehold estates. Fee estates. Fee estates, and several fee estates exist. Each of the ones you need to be aware of for the exam purposes is described in the list below. The term fee estate is usually a general umbrella term for unlimited ownership rights subject to a different limitation, if any. Fee simple, also called fee simple absolute or indefeasible fee. This fee state is the most complete form of ownership without limitations or right of ownership, except for the public and the private restrictions on what can be done with the property. For example, zoning ordinance and deed restrictions or limitations on fee simple ownership. See chapter 8 for more. The fee simple qualified estate, also called the feasible estate. This fee simple estate has some limitations on it. The three types of qualification fee estates are fee simple condition precedent. In this case, ownership, and commonly referred to as a title, won't pass from one person to another until a particular condition is met. An example is someone who donates property to the country for the use of a park, or stipulations that nature trails must be built before a title passes to the county. Fee simple condition subsequent. This form of state is a situation in which the grantor, that is, the original owner, can reclaim the property if some conditions isn't met after the title has passed to the next owner. A grantor who donates property to the country for the parks where nature trails are built, for example, may reclaim the property because the county built a park headquarters building on the land rather than the nature's trail that the donor had required under the original agreement. The right to reclaim property is known as the right of re-entry. The grantor would have to take specific actions to reclaim this property. Fee simple, determinable. In this situation, titles remain with the new owner as long as any conditions of ownership are being met. Say a property is donated to the county park with nature trails stopped being used for the purpose. When that happens, ownership of the property automatically reverts back to is returned to the original owner without the original owner having to take any action. Life estates. Life estates grants possession and limited ownership of the property to the person for the duration of the recipient's life or the life of another person. The main difference between the fee estate and life estate is that the fee estate has no time limit and a life estate does. The two types of life estates are ordinary life estate. An ordinary life estate is a life estate in which the length of time of the state interest is the lifetime of the person receiving life estate. One situation where this form of estate comes in handy is when a husband wants to provide a place for his second wife to live until she dies, but doesn't want to shortchange the children from the first marriage. In that case, the husband/father creates an ordinary life estate granting ownership rights to his second wife for the remainder of her life, with the children named as the remainder, even if they are women, who are entitled to the remainder interest in the stepmom's place after she dies. Life estates. Pure RV. The French word PRV means another life. As proposed to the ordinary life estate, the length of the estate in this case is for the lifetime of the third parties rather than the person actually receiving the life estate. The example I use in the class is a chronically ill nephew whom you want to provide care. You own a second house that is empty at the moment. You give the nephew mother, that could be your sister or sister-in-law, a life estate, pure RV, to live in the house for as long as the nephew is alive. Upon his death, of the house reverts, that is, automatically comes back to you, and they have to revisionary interest in the property. If you happen to die before the nephew does, the house would revert to your heirs upon your nephew's death. Here's another scenario. You're helping your sister take care of your nephew while you're alive, but you want to make provisions for his care after you die. You can create a life estate per the VOV through your will. In that case, the house reverts to the estate or designated heir upon your nephew's death. Some estates have what they call legal life estates, which are life estates in one form or another that are created by the state law. You need to check out whether your state has adopted any of these rights and find the details of how they work. Generally, descriptions for the four common examples of these legal life estates are community property, which is the right of a spouse entitled him or her to 1/2 interest in real estate that was acquired during the marriage. Courtesy, which is the right of the husband to promote or a portion of the real estate that is owned by his wife after she dies, and even if she leaves it to someone else in her will. Dower, which is the right of the wife to promote to a portion of the real property that is owned by her husband after he dies, even if he leaves it to someone else in his will. Homestead, which grants the family home a certain level of protections from creditors during the owner's lifetime. Understanding lease estates. Leasehold estates are considered interests in real estate because they give someone the right and tenants, such as the right to exclusive possession and use of all portions of the property, while the owner retains some rights, such as ownership, the rights to collect rents, and the right to sell the property. Lease in the various leaseholds estate interests are covered in detail in Chapter 12. In looking at lease as real estate interests, however, you need to remember two terms and whose interests they represent. The leasehold interest or estate is a tenant's interest in the real estate property. Remember that the tenant holds the right assigned by the lease. The lease fee interest or estate is the owner of the landlord's interest in the real property. Remember, the landlord holds the fees and title of the property. Eyeing different ownership rights. A variety of rights come with real estate ownership. In this section, I talk about the most important of these: water rights, air rights, surface rights, subsurface rights, and mineral rights. Whereas by no means the only rights contained in the bundle of rights. See the section earlier in this chapter. The rights I discuss have particular features that are important to remember for exam purposes. Be prepared for a few definition type questions and a case study or two that may require you to apply some of what you remember. Going for a swim, water rights. Land that's adjacent to a body of water normally carries with it certain rights exclusively to the body of water. A real estate agent is expected to know something about what these water rights involve. Although water rights may vary according to local law in specific situations, and buyers should always consult the attorney to be sure of what these water rights are. Several common rights of use exist. Common rights are explained in the sections that follow. Littoral rights. Littoral rights are the rights commonly granted to ownership of a property that borders a bay, a large lake, or ocean, or sea. Owners of property abutting such bodies of water have the unrestricted right to use the water and have ownership of the land up to the average or main high water mark. Government owns the land below that point. A littoral right are an appurtenant to the land, which means that they go with the land when you sell it. So you don't think you can still go swimming after you sell the land. Reparson's rights. Reparson's rights are the rights of the property owner who owns the land, abutting river and streams. The rights vary a little depending on whether the river or stream is considered navigable or capable of supporting commercial water traffic. When a river or stream is considered navigable, owners of the property abutting the river and owns the land up to the edge of the water, or the average of the main high mark. The state owns the body of water and the property under the water. On the other hand, when the river or stream is navigable, the rights of the owner of the property abutting the river or stream extends to the center line of the river or stream. In either case, owners of the property that abuts a river or streams have the right to use the water, but they don't have any rights to contaminate water or interrupt or change the flow of the water. Watering rights. In agricultural areas, rights to water may be controlled by special agreements between property owners. In addition, where the water is scarce, the doctrine of prior appropriation may apply. The doctrine of prior appropriation is state specific and may be used in states where water sources are limited. Although implementation of the doctrine can vary from state to state, it basically places the right and control of water sources in the hands of the state rather than individual property owners. Water rights and the rights to use water then are granted by the state to individual property owners. When you want to check whether your state operates under this doctrine and find out about some of the details of how it is implemented, don't forget to look up and down. other rights. Some of the rights associated with owning real estate have to do with what's going on over, ahead, and under the feet. Ownership of the land includes the ownership of the land down to the center of the earth and up to infinity. Although particular, the legal limitations may inhibit your ability to actually use these rights. You nevertheless still have them. Up there, air rights. A property owner has unlimited rights of ownership of the airspace above her land up to infinity. However, these rights may not interfere with aircraft traffic. Air rights frequently are thought of in terms of selling or transferring them to someone else. Picture a 3-story building in a downtown urban area or property zoning such that an owner can build a 20-story building on it. Although the owner doesn't want to build these additional 17 stories, someone else does. Assuming the construction, engineering, and legal experts can be worked out, the owner of the property can sell the air rights of the property to someone else while retaining ownership of the land in a 3-story building. And the new owner of the air rights could build up to 17 or more stories of the building space on top of the existing 3-story building. Down there, surface rights. The most obvious rights that you get when you own a piece of property is the surface rights, which is the rights to do whatever is legally permitted on the surface of the property. Surface rights generally include construction and structures of physical improvements of all kinds, as well as thinking like planting crops. Development rights, or the right to build a piece of property. The rights that can be sold separately from the land. Conveyance, inversely, a community can buy development rights from a farmer to preserve the property affected by those rights for environmental purposes. The farmer's property owner is able to stay and keep the farm, but can never develop the land with houses or other structures. The farm can even sell the property, but the rights to develop the land stays with the county. The new property owner must be content being a farmer. Surface rights also include the rights to give your neighbor a driveway and easement across the surface of your property, as discussed in easements in chapter 8. Way down there, subsurface and mineral rights. Because you own the property down to the center of the earth, and you have the right to use the property beneath the subsurface or to permit others to use it. An example of subsurface rights is selling a city an underground or subsurface easement to install a sewer line across your property. Subsurface rights often are associated with mineral rights. Mineral rights are the rights to take minerals out of the ground. Today, these rights are associated with oil and gas leases. With an easement, the landlord or the landowner makes the company to make those specific resources or products out of the ground. These leases include the rights to build structures necessary to extract the oil and gas from the ground. In some places, there are valuable minerals were found many years ago. Owners sold the property but retained the mineral rights in areas where these transactions have occurred. Seeing a deed that transfer ownership of the property existing, the mineral rights isn't uncommon. That was part 3. It's all mine. Owning and transferring real estate. In chapter 6, owning it. Estate.